All right. So you and I both know a lot of writers.
Yes.
When you're a writer, many of your friends are writers. And most writers that I know of, I don't know about you, if they have the good fortune to write something that then intersects with film or TV, what happens at the end is usually heartbreak and tears and misery, usually.
Yes.
And then there's been films and Barton Fink. There are many, many stories of great writers going to Hollywood and just getting the crap beat out of them.
Correct.
You have had a different outcome. So let's hear about that.
Well, let's start with the fact that I had that part.
Yeah.
So when I wrote Tell No One, there was a huge bidding war in Hollywood.
What year is this?
The year was 2000, I believe. It might have been 2000. The book came out in 2001, so I would say it was 2000.
And you're a name then, but not...
I'm not a name.
Not at all.
It was Tell No One was my breakout book. I had 7 Myron Bolitar books before that, so within the community, I was a name. I was a decent seller.
You were winning some awards.
I'd won awards. I'd won everything in the mystery
and
awards.
And the awards in the mystery and thriller world are serious awards. I don't know if
serious
people know
awards.
that. The Edgar, it's like...
Yes, it was a big deal, but it wasn't in terms of sales or in terms of that sort of thing. I had never hit the New York Times bestseller list.
Oh, is that right?
Never within sniffing distance, I don't think.
Can I ask, how did you keep getting contracts for new books if you were a mid-list author, what we call it, right? Would you have been able to stick around 7 books if you were starting out now?
I don't know. I doubt it. So people believed in me, but so to give you an idea, my first Myron Bolitar book was a paperback original with Dell. So I got paid $5,000 for it. I don't want to brag, but by the 4th book in the series, I was up to $6,000. Overnight success.
Congratulations.
Tremendous. So probably part of it was that I was such a pimple on the butt of publishing, $6,000. And I remember, this is a true story. So my first book was a contract for those Myrons, 2 books, $10,000, $5,000, $5,000. Yeah. The second book contract, my agent says to me, I negotiated it up because they're giving you $11,000. They wanted to make it $5,500, $5,500, but I got them to make it $5,000 and $6,000. And I go, what is the difference? Besides, it seems like it's a later payment. He goes, it shows growth. And I'm like, if that's the idea of what growth you think I want, it was time to leave that age.
Okay, so as you're making a whopping $5,000 for a book that takes you several months or a year to write?
Yep.
What's your family situation at this point? Your wife is a pediatrician.
Yes.
Was she in medical school then?
No, she was already working as a pediatrician up at what was then called Columbia Presbyterian, New York.
Making big bucks as a pediatrician.
No, not making big bucks. I had a full-time job at that. I had a full-time job.
Oh, what's your job then?
I was a company called Club ABC Tours, which was a family travel agency that I was running, helping my grandfather run. Here's the other thing I believe. I don't believe you need to be a full-time writer. I think that that's sort of a fallacy that we have all kind of bought into. So for a long time, I worked the first 8 years out of college, and I wrote at the same time. I don't accept excuses. You don't have time to write. My favorite example is Mary Higgins Clark, who was a legendary mystery writer. So when Mary, I think she was 37 years old, had 5 kids, her husband died. And the very next day, I believe it was her mother-in-law died. She's left with 5 children, no husband, no real financial support. She had a full-time job. She woke up and wrote from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., then got the kids up. So don't tell me you don't have time to write. That's nonsense. It means your life is filled with things that are more important to you than writing, in which case you're not a writer. That's fine. Move on with your life. So you can always find, in my view, you can always find time to write. It may take you 14 months instead of 12 months, but you can always write.
Did you study writing at any point?
No, never.
Okay.
I mean, I was a political science major at Amherst College, which I took because it was all writing. It was never any test taking. So I could always write a B+ paper quickly if I needed to. So I didn't have to study for tests.
Turns out you weren't the only writer at Amherst during that time, yes?
No, there was quite a few of us, actually. So my freshman year, I lived next door to David Foster Wallace. Lived next door to me freshman year.
What was that like?
Well, it's funny because at the time, none of us sort of knew we were going to be writers. Amherst College is a fairly intimidating place back there. It was only 420 students a grade. Everybody seemed quite brilliant. It was the small Ivies. But I had gotten in because of my basketball. I was a good high school basketball player, and that's how I got in. My grades were fine, my SATs were fine, but they weren't Amherst College alone. So I was a little bit intimidated coming from a public New Jersey high school into Amherst. And I took Introduction to Political Science, and David Foster Wallace was in my class. It was Dave Wallace back then, you know. And I wrote my first paper, and it got like a B or a B- on it. I'm walking back to the dorm with David, and I'm like, David, what'd you get in the paper? And he goes, yeah, I got an A. I'm like, can I just read that because I'm curious what an A paper looks like? And I read this and go, oh my God, how did I not fail? I'm going to fail out of this place so fast because I didn't realize at the time David was the smartest human being I've ever met. And I say that in terms of, he was that kid in class that when he spoke, everybody sort of sat up and listened.
Did you see what he would later write? Did you see all of that in him then?
I wouldn't say I would say all of it, but it didn't. If you were saying to me which kid that I knew freshman year would become sort of a genius sort of writer and see things in a skewed way, it was David. He was a strange guy.
You also had Dan Brown in your frat or something?
Dan Brown was also there at the same time.
Was he a writer?
No, none of us were really, we weren't really writing back then. In fact, Dan, I think at the time was more interested in music. And we were friendly, but we didn't know each other super well. We were in the same fraternity, but we knew each other. And I remember a couple of years later, after I had already had a little bit of success, and Dan came to me with the manuscript for Da Vinci Code. And he asked me, he said, we're having this published, can you read it? And I was the first person to actually blurb that book way back when.
And you liked it?
I did, and I actually read, it was based, a lot of the theory was on a nonfiction book called Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which I had read, and I kind of loved that theory. I thought that book was really cool, and I thought, what a genius idea to kind of take that theory and make it into fiction.
I think for a lot of people who read your books, which are many, or people who watch your TV shows and films based on the books, you're a brand name. Also, your name is it's a good Harlan Coben. It feels fake to me.
It
honestly.
does.
I know it's not.
And it's also misspelled all the time, so it's not a great name. It's Harlan with an E-N, or Cohen, or Coben, or Harlem, so I get misspelled a lot.
Other than all those problems, I like the name. So when I read your books, the wife character in Runaway is named Ingrid, but seems to be patterned to some degree on your actual wife, Anne, correct? Yeah. So I feel like Myron is the character that the average reader could easily think is a little bit like a Harlan Coben, right? We agree, basketball, sports agent, and many of the names, maybe just because I know you a little bit and because we live in New York, many of the names have a familiarity, or I feel like there's a wink in them. The names are pretty strong signals often, kind of class-wise or whatever. So how much do you think about that? And I assume you're naming people after people you know now and again, yeah?
Sometimes. First of all, I do this charity thing where if you donate, I think it's $5,000 now, to charities of my choosing, I'll use your or a loved one's name in a book. Now, I don't take requests. Usually it's a neighbor who's mentioned once, but you could be a killer, you could be a dead body. Read my books first before you decide to do this. You know what I mean? If you're sweet, I get these letters like, I'm buying this for my mom. She's 85 years old and likes to play croquet. I'm like, she's gonna be like, on crack and living in an alley in my book. So that's one way I sometimes come up, but sometimes it's just a feel thing. It's just, he's a Ken. Like I wrote one book, I don't remember I think it's The Innocent. And I named the lead character Jeff. And somewhere along the way, it's like, he's not a Jeff, he's a Will, or something like that, or a Matt. Yeah. And I just will change, it's like some people are that name. Yeah. So the other technique, if you will, is I have to make the names different enough so when you're reading fast, they won't have, like if I have a Steve, I won't have a Stan. Yeah. Because you're reading fast, you'll confuse them. I usually have someone who just goes by their initials. Yeah. In the book I just wrote with Reese, one of the lead characters' name is Pork Chop. That's a name you're not going to forget. That's a name you're not going to skim over and think of somebody else. Yeah. It's also a great nickname. Yeah. And he's a biker dude. Yeah. So you get right away Pork Chop. So honestly, reading a bunch of you the last several weeks reminded me of a writer that I don't know if you think about yourself in common, but Tom Wolfe. Mm-hmm. So Tom was a great New York writer. Sure. I think of you as a great New York writer. They're not all New York, but there's a lot of New York in what you write. But also, he was writing these novels that were almost nonfiction books, but novelistic. Yes. But one thing that I think we all liked about reading Tom Wolfe fiction was that they had the reporter's eye for detail and observation, because he'd been a reporter for a long time. So when I'm reading you, and I'm reading, let's say, Runaway, and there's a scene early on, something happens at Strawberry Fields in Central Park, and the protagonist, Simon, the father of the runaway, learns about the schedule of these singers, these kind of panhandling singers. It's just one of those moments that when you're reading, it's not the plot itself, but it's such a delicious little thing to know now. And I wonder how it works with you. Well, that one's kind of interesting. If you go to right now, we walked over to Central Park, to Strawberry Fields, and we went in there. The guy's name is Davey, and he'll talk to you, by the way. Anybody
He was called Davey in the book. Even.
Yeah, he kept his name. Because I was noticing when I was there that they changed on the hour. It used to be chaos. Guys would be singing over each other and fighting, and somewhere along the line, they all kind of came together and say, hey, for all of our sakes, so we could all make some money off of this, we have to have a schedule. And Davey still is the guy who schedules it. So the guys will come to him, and he'll text out what time they're going to be playing, and they all play watch for 1 hour. Now they're much more sophisticated. They all have microphones. They all have QR codes to give them donations and things like that. And so I asked one of the guys, like, how do you decide who's here? And he goes, Davey. So I went over and talked to Davey for a while. And I got all that information from Davey.
What do you say to Davey? Do you say I'm a novelist?
I say, yeah, I'm right. You know, I'm a book. I noticed the guy. Everyone's always willing to talk about what they do. People love to talk about what they do. And I don't know how many years ago now, I remember I met Davey over 10 years ago. And every morning when I walk my dog, I still say hi to Davey. He's there all the time, man. So you say hi to him. He's a great dude. I'm one of the only writers who will tell you this. Very lazy researcher. I do not believe in research for a book. I think if you're trying to write a book, the advice I give you is don't do any research, do as little as possible.
Fiction book, I'm hoping
Novels,
you're talking
yes.
about.
But and I defend the position because no other writer, you know, oh, we got to do that, you got to know that. And I do know it. But here's the reason I say that. Just two reasons. One is you will find any excuse not to write. It's like, I'm going to write, but first, how about if I wood panel my basement? You'll do anything to avoid that moment you have to sit down and write. So research is much more fun than writing. Oh, I'm going to write a scene on Park Avenue in New York. First, I got to go to Park Avenue. I got to smell the hot dog stands. I got to watch the women walk. No, you've been there. You know it. You have an imagination. You have Google Earth. Write the damn scene now, then you can go to it and look at it. Don't use it as an excuse not to write.